FDP.
Good morning. Dr. R. Keshamurthy, Professor and Head, Department of Mechanical Engineering, all the coordinators associated with organizing this AICTE sponsored 1 week faculty development program on applications of 3D printing technology in engineering education, and also various resource persons who have been invited to conduct the faculty development program on various topics. It gives me a great pleasure as principal of Dayanand Sagar College of Engineering in welcoming all the participants to this faculty development program. 3D printing technology is one of the fast emerging technological areas where it needs a lot of exposure on the part of the faculty so that we will be in a position to give required exposure to the students so that the students become good contributors when they graduate from the portals of engineering colleges. I am of the strong opinion that each participants will have good interaction with the resource persons and they will return with rich value add in terms of information and knowledge as regards to 3D printing technology. I wish this 1 week FDP program a grand success and wish all the participants an effective interactive experience in this 1 week. And on behalf of management of Dayanand Sagar College of Engineering, I express my acknowledgement and sincere thanks to all the resource persons for having accepted our invitation to be part of this FDP program, and thank Dr. Keshamurthy and his team in organizing this FDP. And once again, wishing all the participants all the best. I pass on the controls to Dr. Keshamurthy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Very good morning and a warm welcome to all the participants for this virtual faculty development program on applications of 3D printing technology in engineering education. Sponsored by AICTE Training and Learning Academy, ATAL, and organized by the Department of Mechanical Engineering, Dayanand Sagar College of Engineering, Bangalore. This FDP primarily focused on introducing cutting-edge 3D printing technologies to a diverse range of researchers, teachers, and students. So this program is intended to impart participants about design, functioning, and operation of 3D printing technologies and its applications in industrial and educational sectors. The primary objective will be to understand the various processes that fall under umbrella of 3D printing technologies, which encompass both polymers and metal-based systems. Further, current and future research trends, educational, pedagogical applications, and industrial case studies will be discussed in order to demonstrate how the technology has been realized in various application segments. This FDP connects participants to 14 eminent speakers from prestigious institutions, research laboratories, and industries. Once again, I heartily welcome you all and wish you all a successful and fruitful faculty development program. Thank you. Over to Professor Anand.
Thank you very much, sir. So quickly we will start with our today's first session. So before we start with our today's first session, I would like to introduce today's speaker to each one of you. So today's first session will be given by Siddharth Amarnath. It's a very proud moment for us to say that Mr. Siddharth Amarnath is a proud alumni of TACE 2009 batch, and I take this privilege to welcome him to this faculty development program on behalf of Mechanical Department and TACE. Currently, Mr. Siddharth Amarnath is CTO and Head New Technology Initiatives at LEPO. He completed his Master of Science in Mechanical Engineering from KU London University, specialization in manufacturing and management. He did his Bachelor's of Engineering from Dayanand Sagar College of Engineering, Mechanical Department, 2009 batch. He has many certifications with him. Few to name are commercialization of intellectual properties from IISc, which was issued in 2019, and also design thinking and innovation certification from Indian Institute of Science IISc. I would say license, not certification. Sorry. Mr. Siddharth Amarnath's experience include presently working at LiPo. Apart from that, he has also worked with Lycan 3D, where he was head of business development, and he served there for 3 years and 1 month. He has also been as intern in CNH Industrial, where he implemented the MATLAB scripts to automate validation of AutoSAR port sign data dictionaries, and he has served there for 2 months. Apart from that, he has also worked as operations executive in Sumuka Creations for 2 months, wherein his job was for the estimation and procurement of raw materials, inventory and manpower management, development and implementation of production schedules, and so on. His skills include what are the skills includes from there is purchase and supply chain management, production management, and quality control. He has also served as trainee in Ashok Leyland during his graduate time, where he has learnt the knowledge on state-of-art technologies involved in assembling of trucks and buses. He has also served as intern in Precision Telecom Products. So overall, I would say his expertise in this field has been phenomenal, and presently he is CTO and a head for new technology initiatives. So once again, I take this opportunity to welcome him on behalf of TSC. A very heartily welcome to you, sir. Now I would request Mr. Siddharth Amarnath to start with the session. Over to you, sir.
Anand sir, thank you so much for the kind introduction. I hope I'm audible. Hello, everyone.
Yes, sir, you are clearly audible.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Okay, just a second. Hello, everyone. I would like to thank the faculty of Dayanand Sagar College of Engineering for giving me this opportunity to address the AICTE Training and Learning Faculty Development Program with a specific theme of application of 3D printing technology in engineering education. I'm Siddharth, alumni of Dayanand Sagar College of Engineering, Department of Mechanical Engineering. Upon completion of my graduation, I pursued my master's in mechanical engineering from KE Leuven, where I acquainted myself with the 3D printing technologies, and I currently head the business development at Lycan 3D. Lycan 3D, established by my colleague Mr. Rahul Singh in 2017, is India's only deep tech additive manufacturing startup that focuses primarily on expanding the boundaries of additive manufacturing through research. We have an interdisciplinary team consisting of additive manufacturing experts, mechanical and electrical engineers working on developing novel additive manufacturing technologies. While we compete with large-scale companies at every stage, we've had our share of awards and laurels. We've been recognized as top 5 startups at Global Bio Asia 2020 in Hyderabad, an event organized by Government of Telangana. We have also recently won the Best Innovation Award at a hackathon organized by Tech Bharat. Further, at the onset of COVID-19, while we were interacting with a large number of doctors, we realized that the protective equipments available at their disposal to attend the pandemic was not adequate. Thus, we have developed an innovation to address this need, and this project was funded by the Department of Science and Technologies in India. So we've effectively won one government grant and 3 events in the last 1 year. At Lycan 3D, a bulk of our focus revolves around R&D. We have chosen the path of developing customized 3D printers for the needs of the researchers. We have recently developed an extrusion-based ceramic 3D printers for the R&D activities of the researchers and scientists. We are now in the process of developing 3D printers for construction activities, for 3D printing for high temperature materials such as PEEK and ULTEM, and DLP-based ceramic 3D printers. And we have also identified a few more areas in which we would be working, and those details would be given out in the subsequent period of time. In addition to the R&D activities and building of customized 3D printers or 3D printers for specialized application, we offer 3D printing as a service, 3D modeling and product design, and also we participate with academia for R&D in the field of additive manufacturing. We have a wide range of 3D printing technologies for our customers to choose from. The range of technology we have helps our customers to balance their budget, timelines, and their technical requirements. More on these technologies would be explained in the due course of time. The Indian government has recognized additive manufacturing as one of the high growth sectors in India and has also framed the national strategy for additive manufacturing that aspires to position India as a global hub for additive manufacturing deployment and development. We have quite a number of foreign OEMs like 3D Systems, HP, SLM Solutions, Shining 3D, GE Editor, Markforged, DMG Mori, and Stratasys operating in a large number in India, while a few homegrown brands that have been mentioned here. It can be noticed that majority of these 3D printing firms in India focus on the service model, but the uncomfortable truth is that only a handful number of startups are focusing towards technology development in India. Though 3D printing has its applications in a myriad of sectors, the manufacturing and the medical sectors have been huge beneficiaries of this technology. Though I would like to talk about each of the applications of 3D printing technology in each sector, I'm informed that there are dedicated speakers to talk on those lines. A basic split up of additive manufacturing application in India is shown here. It can be noticed that the automotive industry, the transport industry, the tooling and the engineering industry, jewelry and healthcare industries have been one of the early adapters of this technology here in India. 3D printers can be categorized into one of the several types of processes. Vat polymerization, wherein a liquid polymer is cured by light. Material extrusion, molten thermoplastic is deposited through a heated nozzle. Powder bed fusion, powder particles are fused by high energy source. Material jetting, a process in which liquid photosensitive fusing agents are deposited on a powder bed and cured by light. Binder jetting, a process in which droplets of liquid binding agent are deposited on a bed of granulated materials which are later sintered. Direct energy deposition, in which molten metal is simultaneously deposited and fused. Sheet lamination, wherein individual sheets of material are cut into shapes and laminated together. These are the 7 main different types of 3D printing technologies. Within each of these technologies, it can be noted that there are unique technologies, and for every unique technology, also there are different brands selling very similar printers. Let's go into these step by step. Vat polymerization. Vat polymerization is a category of additive manufacturing process that is used to create 3D objects by selectively curing liquid resin through targeted light activated polymerization. Stereolithography was the first additive manufacturing process to be patented and commercialized. Since the advent of stereolithography in the 1980s, vat polymerization has grown to also include technologies such as continuous liquid interface production and direct light processing under its gambit. All types of vat polymerization use special resins called photopolymers as the printing material. When exposed to a certain wavelength of light, the liquid photopolymers molecules rapidly bind together and cure into a solid state through a process called photopolymerization. As shown in the image, most 3D printers that operate under the principle of vat polymerization, a liquid photopolymer is held in a container or vat with the build platform partially submerged near the surface of the liquid. Using the information supplied by the CAD file, the printer directs a light source to selectively cure the liquid photopolymer into a solid layer. Then the build platform is resubmerged into the remaining resin, and the process is repeated for the next layers until the design is fully printed. Stereolithography and digital light processing in 3D printing are the two most commonly used resin processes. In stereolithography, an object is created by selectively curing a polymer resin layer by layer by using an ultraviolet laser beam. DLP is a similar process to SLA, but in DLP it uses a digital light projector screen to flash a single image of each layer all at once. Because the projector is a digital screen, the image of each layer is composed of square pixels, resulting in a layer formed of small rectangular bricks called voxels. DLP can achieve faster prints for some parts as the entire layer is exposed at once, rather than drawing out with a laser as in the case of SLA process. It is also interesting to note on the right side of my screen that there are two types of SLA machine setups, the top-down orientation and the bottom-up orientation. The top-down SLA printers place the laser source above the tank and the part is built facing upwards. The build platform begins at the very top of the resin vat and moves downwards after every layer. The bottom-up approach, the SLA printers place the light source under the resin tank and the part is built facing upside down. The resin tank has a transparent bottom and a silicone coating that allows the light of the laser to pass through but stops the cured resin to stop from sticking onto it. After every layer, the cured resin is detached from the bottom of the tank as the build platform moves upwards. The bottom-up orientation is mainly used in desktop 3D printers like Formlabs, while the top-down is while the top-down is generally used in industrial grade, bottom-up SLA printers are easy to manufacture and operate, but their build sizes are always limited. On the other hand, the top-down printers can scale up into very large sizes without any big loss in accuracy. However, the advanced capabilities of these systems come at a higher cost. The main physical differentiation in the arrangement of the core components can be noted that the main difference between the SLA, DLP top-down and the bottom-up, the only differentiation could be found in the arrangement of the core components such as light, build platform, and the resin tanks. Coming to the characteristics of vat polymerization printed parts, in SLA printed parts, there is no difference between the z-axis and the xy plane in terms of chemical bonds. Each continuous part printed on an SLA machine is a continuous polymer network. Since the SLA lines are fully bonded to their neighbors, there are no voids or microscopic cracks. As a result of it is isotropy and water tightness are achieved. SLA parts and DLP parts can produce parts with very high dimensional accuracies with very high intricate details. SLA parts have a very smooth surface finish, making them ideal for visual prototypes. In SLA, we have a wide range of materials available, rigid materials similar to injection molding ABS, tough and durable materials like polypropylene, clear transparent materials like for polycarbonate parts, castable resins, high temperature resins, and specialty resins specifically used for the dental and the jewelry sectors. So, to sum up, SLA printed parts or DLP printed parts are basically used as design verification models for appearance and proof of concept models. These These are functional prototypes and models for form and fit testing. These can also be used for wind tunnel testing models. The high clarity, because of the resins that processes transparency, it can also be made into parts for visualization with transparent assemblies and complex assemblies. One such significant application of these SLA printed parts is in the use of vacuum casting, wherein the master is made of vacuum casting. Vacuum casting is a technology recommended for production from 10 to 100 parts for mechanical and visual tests. It is a process in which resin is poured into a single mold. The working principle in vacuum casting is similar to injection molding. Both ways produce parts by the mold. However, vacuum casting differs significantly from injection molding in the specific process. The vacuum casting processes can be outlined as follows. Firstly, upon confirmation of the CAD file, the technician starts to make a 3D master model through 3D printing. The master model will be placed into a casting frame and filled with liquid silicon. The silicon mold will be cut into two parts after well cured. As per the design request, subsequently, the technician will measure the proper proportions of the polyurethanes, and then the polyurethanes will be poured into silicon mold and will be cured in the vacuum casting machine. The vacuum casting in the vacuum casting machine, due to the vacuum condition, it is able to remove any trapped bubbles that ensure smooth finishing. So some of the advantages of vacuum casting are due to high precision and high fine details. Due to the silicon mold, it makes it very much possible to obtain parts that are faithfully true to the original model. Even with the complex geometries, the result is perfect and the quality is comparable to the final part. Additionally, the use of PU resin allows you to choose from a wide range of materials as close to your requirement with a variety of choices in terms of the flexibility and rigidity. But also, it can also give you an option in which the parts can be pigmented with color, or you can also achieve a transparency or a translucency kind of finish as per your requirement. It is also possible to create overmoldings and produce parts with painted finishes. One more significant advantage of using vacuum casting is the prices and the deadlines. The use of silicon mold allows a reduction of cost compared to an aluminum or a steel mold. In addition, you can achieve economies of scale from around 10 parts, which makes this method more valuable than 3D printing. Finally, it takes 7 to 10 days to get 30 to 50 functional prototypes, making it a most attractive method to meet urgent requirements. However, there are certain limitations for vacuum casting. The lifetime of the mold is very short. Another sector where VAT polymerization has been deeply impactful is the jewelry sector. 3D printed jewelry production augments the principles of investment casting or lost wax casting with the advantages of digital design and manufacturing process. With the lost wax casting, jewelry designers had to hand carve the original pattern in wax, place the wax pattern in a mold to be burnt out, and then pour the precious metal like gold or silver into a mold cavity to create a cast piece. To achieve its final appearance, designers had to polish and finish the cast piece to shine. With a digital workflow, jewelers use 3D printing softwares and tools to create designs digitally and using a high resolution 3D printers to produce the 3D printed patterns that can be cast in the mold that and that can be cast in a mold. After a burnout of a positive pattern, the process follows the same as investment casting pattern, and the process is shown as on the screen. Going forward to the material extrusion process, extrusion-based technology is the most popular one in the market. While there are other types of technologies for creating extrusions, heat is normally used to melt bulk of the material in a small portable chamber, and the material is pushed through the feed system, which is used to create a pressure to extrude. Here is how an FDM printer works. A spool of thermoplastic filament is first loaded onto the printer. Once the nozzle has reached its desired temperature, the filament is fed onto the extrusion head and in the nozzle where it melts. The extrusion head is attached to a 3-axis system that allows it to move in the X, Y, and the Z directions. The melted material is extruded in thin strands and deposited layer by layer in predetermined location where it cools and solidifies. Sometimes the cooling of the material can be accelerated through the use of cooling fans attached to the fans. To fill in an area, multiple passes are required. When the layer is finished, the build platform either moves upwards or moves downwards, or the extrusion head moves upwards depending on the configuration of the printer available at your disposal, and a new layer is deposited. This process is repeated until the part is complete. So why do we have to prefer FDM process? FDM is totally an inexpensive process and works well with a wide variety of plastics. One of the greatest advantage of this FDM material process is that the durability of the materials and the stability of the material properties over a period of time. The production grade thermoplastic used in FDM are suitable for detailed functional prototypes, durable for manufacturing tools, and also low volume manufacturing parts. However, parts fabricated using the FDM process are anisotropic, the layer lines are visible, and they're comparatively low in terms of dimensional accuracies and resolution. The minimum layer thickness in this case is starting from 0.2 mm. There are 3D printers of FDM available with a print volume of 300 cross 300 mm to as large as 1 meter, 1 meter tall, 1 meter in the XYZ axis. So standard accuracy is 0.2 mm. There are quite a number of materials that can be used with FDM processes. So I would categorize them into basically as basic thermoplastics such as PLA, ABS, and PETG. These plastics do not have excellent qualities, but are most popular in the most popular printing thermoplastics available. PLA is the most common printing plastic that prints well and possesses decent mechanical properties. However, its complete lack of heat resistance and low durability makes it impossible to use in industrial environments. ABS has superior heat resistance, but isn't particularly strong and reacts poorly with manufacturing chemicals. PETG is a 3D printing material, again, a substrate of polyethylene, is a cross between the two. It is a bit more stronger than ABS and a bit more heat resistant than PLA, but is still not robust enough to withstand most of the manufacturing equipment. The niche materials such as TPU, polycarbonate, and nylon. Niche thermoplastics have 1 or 2 excellent facets, making them very useful in specific application. Nylon is a perfect material. It's not stiff or particularly strong, and it carries virtually no heat resistance, but it's extremely durable and has remarkable chemical resistance. As a result, it's used in applications where flexibility and durability are very much important. TPU. TPU is an extremely ductile material that has properties similar to nylon, but with little bit more flexibility. Polycarbonate is an excellent plastic in many aspects, quite strong and heat resistant, but is only moderately durable and chemically resistant. Superplastics. These plastics, such as PEEK and ULTEM, possesses all the aspects necessary to thrive in a manufacturing environment. PEEK and ULTEM both are strong, stiff, and have extremely high heat resistance and chemical resistance. However, the key advantages and disadvantages of this technology can be summarized as follows. FDM is a cost-effective way of producing custom thermoplastics and prototypes. The lead times in FDM are short. A wide range of thermoplastic materials are available, suitable for prototyping and some non-commercial functional application. However, it has the lowest dimensional accuracy and resolution compared to the other 3D printing technologies. Additionally, the layer addition mechanism makes FDM parts inherently anisotropic. One advantage, again, is that These parts can be finished to a very high surface finish, or post processing can be done as per the requirements. They can be polished, primed, painted, cold vapored, vapor smoothed, epoxy coated. Anything can be achieved on FDM printed parts. Composite 3D printing is a young technology, but one with huge, largely untapped potential. So basically, what makes a composite? A composite is a combination of two or more materials with dissimilar properties, provided these properties work together to make a single advanced material. When we speak about continuous fiber 3D printing, a composite means that a particular fiber is impregnated and covered with plastics. Typically, these are a base polymer referred to as matrix and reinforcing fibers of any type that are bound together to produce particular sets of desirable characteristics. So basically, in the context of 3D printing, fiber composites can be of two forms: chopped carbon fibers and composite, and continuous carbon fibers, continuous fibers. Going forward, powder bed fusion processes. Powder bed 3D printing technology spawns products with precision and accuracy. This 3D printing technology enables the manufacturing of vast array of geometrically complex products using a heat source, mainly lasers or electron beams. These are used to fuse powder particles layer by layer, therefore forming a solid part. Manufacturers can benefit out of this technology due to its uh, due to the design for freedom of design consideration that it provides, which enables the designer to use his creativity in terms of achieving his desired components. The powder bed fusion methods can be classified into selective laser sintering or SLS, multi-jet fusion by HP, selective laser melting SLM, and the electron beam melting. Let me first talk about the SLS process. SLS process produces solid parts by using a laser to sinter thin layers of powdered raw material, one layer at a time. The process begins by spreading an initial layer of powder over the build platform. The cross section of the part is scanned and sintered by the laser, solidifying it. The build platform then drops down one layer and the new layer of powder is applied. The process repeats until a solid part is formed. The result of this process is a component completely encased in an unsintered powder. The part is removed from the powder, cleaned, and then it is ready for further post-processing. Multi-jet fusion. Multi-jet fusion is a powder-based technology that does not use lasers. The powder is heated uniformly at the outset. A fusing agent is jetted where the particles need to be selectively molten, and the detailing agent is jetted around the contours to improve the part resolution. While heat lamps pass over the surface of the powder, the jetted material captures the heat and helps it distribute evenly, and therefore forming a solidified layer. Multi-jet fusion uses a fine-grained materials that allows ultra-thin layers of 80 microns thickness, thus leading to parts with high density and low porosity compared to the parts produced with laser sintering. It also leads to exceptional smooth surface finish straight out of the 3D printer, and functional parts need very minimal post processing for this from this technology. However, there are certain differences between the SLS and the MJF. The main difference between the SLS and the MJF is the heat source. SLS uses a laser to scan and sinter each cross section, while in an MJF, an ink is dispensed on the powder that promotes the absorption of the infrared light. An infrared light energy source then passes over the build platform, fusing the inked areas. In the SLS, each cross section is fused point by point, while in an MJF, fusing happens line-wise. This gives a small competitive advantage to MJF, but it does not change significantly the print time, as it is a recoating time that mainly determines the total printing time, which is identical in both of these cases. An aspect of MJF that is significantly faster than the SLS is in the bin cooling and the post-processing. HP offers a dedicated post-processing station that speeds up the cooling rate of the printed bin and helps in powder removal. In the multi-jet fusion process, the recovered powder can be 80 to 85% recycled and reused, while in the SLS process, only 50% of the powder can be reused. Faster cooling times, greater recyclability means that MJF operators are less hesitant to start the job when the bin is partially full. While in an SLS, the machine operators often wait for the bin to fill before they start the printing activity. This key difference in the workflow results in shorter lead times of production. Another difference with respect to the material property is that though the material used in both the processes is nylon or polyamide, PA12, when the printing is happening, the multi-jet fusion parts printed out of the multi-jet fusion technology have shown to exhibit superior strength and flexibility and a more homogeneous mechanical properties compared to the SLS parts, which are weaker along the direction of the print direction in the case of the SLS. However, SLS printers offer more material options such as carbon filled polyamide, aluminum filled polyamide, and flexible TPU. Moreover, SLS is a well-established and a well-studied process. The properties of SLS are thoroughly documented by manufacturers and the independent researchers. On the other hand, only polyamide is the currently available material with multi-jet fusion, and it is an important engineering properties such as impact strength and creep characteristics are widely not available. Of course, this is expected to change as the technology matures, and because MJF is an open platform, it is allowing for faster material development. Here are some sample photos printed out on a HP multi-jet fusion printer and an SLS 3D printer. However, there are certain common traits which both these printers possess. Freeform design. Since these are powder-based processes, the previous layer of unsintered powder acts as a support to the next layer. Both these printers can offer a functioning against a versatile amount of material. These are scalable, fast, and cheap. Both SLS and multi-jet fusion find its application in a wide array of sectors such as aerospace, automotive, product design, consumer electronics, defense, and research and development. SLM and DMLS, both selective laser melting and direct metal laser sintering, produce parts via methods similar to SLS. The main difference is that SLM and DMLS are used in the production of metal parts. SLM achieves a full melt of the powder, while DMLS heats the powder to a near melting temperature until they are chemically fused together. DMLS works with alloys, while SLM can use single component metals such as aluminum. Unlike SLS process, SLM and DMLS require support structures to compensate for the high residual thermal stresses generated during the printing process. Electron beam melting. Electron beam melting uses a high energy beam rather than a laser to induce fusion between the layers of a metal powder. A focused electron beam scans a thin layer of powder, causing localized melting and solidification over a specific cross-sectional area. Electron beam systems produce less residual stresses in parts, resulting in less distortion and they require less amount of anchors and support structures. Moreover, electron beam melting uses less energy and can produce layers at a faster rate than SLM and DMLS, but the minimum feature size, powder particle size, layer thicknesses are typically of lower quality. The EBM process requires the parts to be produced in vacuum, and the process can be used only with conductive materials. In the metal printing process, metal powder plays a significant role in the process. The quality of the metal powder will have a major influence on the mechanical properties, but it can also influence the build-to-build consistency, the reproducibility between the AM machines, the production of defect-free components, and the manufacturing defects on the surfaces. Again, I would like to if I've had time, I would like to go deeper into this particular topic of DMLS as well as electron beam. However, I'm informed that Mr. Vinod of CMTI shall be delivering a detailed lecture purely on this topic. So I would like to go further. The next process that we come across is a material jetting process. Material jetting technologies use UV light or heat to harden photopolymers, metals, or wax, building parts one layer at a time. Nanoparticle jetting and drop on demand are the two other types of material jetting processes that have been recently established. Often, while in the field of additive, we always feel as an industry person, there are times wherein we feel one material or one color is just not enough. And that is exactly where polyjet technology by Stratasys comes into picture. Polyjet technology is one main manufacturing technology under the gambit of material jetting that dispenses a photopolymer from hundreds of tiny nozzles in the printhead to build a part layer by layer. This allows the material jetting operations to deposit build material in rapid line-wise fashion compared to other point-wise deposition technologies that follow a path to complete the cross-sectional area of a layer. As the droplets are deposited to the build platform, they are cured and solidified using a UV light. Polyjet processes require support, and this is often printed simultaneously during the build from a dissolvable material that is easily removed during post-processing. Polyjet material enables horizontal layers of just 32 micron thickness, fine details, and ultra thin walls up to up to 0.6 mm depending on the geometry of the part. This means that Polyjet is capable of building very precise mechanical components, offering you high quality prototypes for a shorter time to market. The medical industry often utilizes full color 3D printing to produce educational medical models. They're also used to produce anatomical models for pre-surgical planning as well. So, going a little further into the field of Polyjet, in the Polyjet technology, multi-jet as multi-material and multi-color printing can be employed in three different formats. This can be employed at a build area level, wherein different parts can be printed in different materials or colors simultaneously, speeding up the manufacturing process. At a part level, wherein different sections of a same single part can be designated to be printed in a different material or color. For example, creating a stiff case with a flexible buttons for prototyping with haptic feedback. At a material level, two or more print resins can be mixed in different ratios before dispensing, therefore creating a digital material with a specific material properties such as hardness, stiffness, etc. However, material jetting parts are mainly suitable for non-functional prototypes as they have pure, very poor mechanical properties. The materials from this Polyjet machine are photosensitive and their mechanical properties and material properties degrade over a period of time. The high cost of this technology make material jetting financially not viable for some applications. However, the only benefits of this technology is that one obtains realistic prototypes with excellent details, high accuracy, and very smooth surface finish. But the downsides of it, it's a expensive process with a very brittle mechanical properties. Ceramic 3D printing is a way to create breakthrough designs and improvements for both technical and business aspects of unique ceramic materials. The additive manufacturing of ceramics has the potential to not only transform the way ceramic industry addresses the prototype development, but also presents an opportunity to open up new applications that until now were impossible to produce using conventional ceramic technology. In this process, a resin that is filled with ceramic particles is used in a SLA or a DLP printer that cures each layer with a UV light, and and the final parts must go through a debinding process. Let me explain it in a little bit detailed manner. The printer builds a 3D model from the bottom to top approach, one layer at a time. First, the printer's rolling mechanism rolls a thin layer of ceramic powder and resin onto the print. It rolls a small layer of resin onto the printhead. A UV light is incident on the build platform, and therefore it selectively cures the material. The platform then drops and the roller further spreads, and this process is repeated again and again, very similar to the SLA or the DLP process. However, there are certain things that is different. In a SLA or a DLP process, the raw material were directly in a form of UV curable resins. But however, in our case of ceramic powders are mixed into the photopolymer resins. Therefore, the slurry has to be uniformly mixed. The parameters of production need to be set, and this is an iterative process. Till date, nobody would have got the first build exactly right. Therefore, trial and error optimization happens in terms of selecting the parameters suitable to the photopolymer resins chosen and the ceramic material chosen. Therefore, once the parameter is selected, it is then sent for production, wherein the process is very similar to an SLA or a DLP process. And then it is removed from the build plate. It is debinded, sintered, and then sent for inspection and validation. Ceramic materials are used typically because of their hardness, abrasion, and heat resistance, because of their high mechanical and dimensional stability, their high mechanical strength at high temperature resistance temperatures, their high corrosion activity, high corrosion resistance and oxidation resistance, their electrical and thermal insulations. Typically, high performance ceramics are used where other printers fail. Right? Also, ceramics find a huge application in the medical engineering sector. These are bioinert and bioresorbable. They are non-allergic. They have low thermal and no electrical conductivity. They are easy to sterilize, and they have high mechanical strength and wear and tear resistance. Quite a number of ceramic materials have been chosen and experimentations are underway with respect to ceramic 3D printing. Most commonly in the healthcare sector, people are using tricalcium phosphate and hydroxyapatite, and in the engineering sector, people are using zirconia, toughened alumina, silica-based nitrides, etc. So ceramic 3D printing finds a lot of applications in the aerospace sector, wherein the design freedom for complex branching structures and multiple walls can be easily achieved. It reduces the lead times required for faster processing of requests. The ceramic 3D printers are typically would save a lot of cost for small series production, and they have complete reproducibility and dimensional accuracy kind of properties. The ceramic 3D printers have a print surface starting from 100 mm plus 100 mm. They have a high resolution of 35 micrometer. The 3D printed components, when put into a furnace, exhibit same shrinkage, therefore making it predictable for a person to mark up accordingly. The surface quality of the 3D printed ceramic components are way higher. And most of the ceramic 3D printers are open platform wherein you can do your R&D with respect to choosing different types of ceramic materials and photosensitive resins. So we've come across a wide range of 3D printing technology, but what is causing challenges to adopt these technologies in India? High cost of capital equipment, lack of formal additive manufacturing standards, lack of additive manufacturing ecosystem, lack of skilled manpower, monopoly of the additive manufacturing market by foreign OEMs, and lack of clarity in terms of around the issue of liability. For example, nobody knows whom to fight against in case of a damage. Should we go to the manufacturer or to the person who supplied components to the manufacturer or the OEM? Most of monopoly going addressing that issue. Most of the original equipment manufacturers are foreign companies. Therefore, this has created a monopolistic approach towards the consumables, which are very expensive and thus hampered the adoption of the AM technology here in India. Speaking about the lack of additive manufacturing ecosystem, service providers in India are limited, and most of them are not equipped with competitive technologies such as which have capability to do materials such as plastic, ceramic, metals. The AM ecosystem needs to develop by aggregating all the service platforms under a single platform to provide comprehensive additive manufacturing solutions. So what would enable additive manufacturing technology to go ahead in the coming days? It is innovation that can be in the areas of design, material, processes, and value chain. It is only if innovations are coming across these sectors that the technology would be going ahead. So, is there any role for startups here in India? I typically would say yes. So, typically, startups in India primarily focus towards technology development. And these startups are not started by very experienced personnel. These are started by people right out of their engineering or sometimes even while they're in their engineering. One such example is Twasta. Twasta is a IIT Madras startup founded by Mr. Aditya. They primarily focus towards construction 3D printing. The founders of Twasta were mentored by the faculty at IIT Madras, and they together they have developed this technology of construction 3D printing and has showcased it to everyone and to the world. And also recently the Vice President of India just visited their facility. Going ahead, there's another startup based out of Chennai, another IIT Madras startup by the name Fabit, which focuses primarily on in terms of composite parts for the manufacturing sector. They use 3D printing and they have developed their own 3D printers for 3D printing continuous carbon fibers and other composite materials. However, it is worthwhile to note that recently a couple of big industrial OEMs have come across into the picture of manufacturing 3D printers here in India. Recently on the left, Ace Micromatic Solutions have launched their ALM 400 large format metal 3D printer here in India, and Intech DMLS based out of Pune has also launched its 3D printer based out of India. But what is stopping us from doing so? Let's look into the 3D printer from a mechanical product design perspective. There are basic components. Any 3D printer is built out of basic components such as motors, extruders, printing bed, x-axis, y-axis movements, etc. Onto the left of the screen, if I would draw your attention, it is just a typical FDM process. And onto the right, the printer mentioned is a composite 3D printer. If we look into it thoroughly and deeply, it can be noted that the components used in both the machines are the same. However, the only difference lies in the way these filaments are melted and deposited. Oh, slurry based construction 3D printer. Looks like the materials or the structure of this 3D printer is also very similar to the extrusion filament based extrusion 3D printer. However, like I said, the way the material is deposited is the only difference. Going forward, once we develop mastery over building the XYZ and controlled extrusion of materials, going ahead, we can also go to the extent of 3D printing drugs, which showcase and give you possibilities to develop patient-specific drugs, and wherein anything can be designed using a software. Basically, one of the benefits is that a person who is required who is in requirement of a drug can consume the active pharmaceutical ingredient as per his desired requirement. He does not have to eat much or more. For example, we generally have Dolo 500 mgs. So if required, sometimes we break it into half and give it. So to avoid all those things, we can directly 3D print a tablet based on the actual dosage required for that particular person. Looking at VAT polymerization, again, these are basic mechanical components wherein it is a VAT chamber wherein the material is kept. There is a movement happening on the Z axis wherein the resin tank is either lowered or raised, and there is a reflector or an optical galvanometer which is redirecting the light source to achieve the desired part. Similarly, in the DLP process, the components very much still remain the same. Looking towards onto the right, SLA or DLP based ceramic 3D printers also have the same properties or the components. It just varies in terms of the raw material that is required. Laser sintering. Laser sintering again is a purely mechanical component wherein the print bed is lowered and the mechanical rollers deposit precise and accurate amount of material on each layer. Is this very difficult for us to develop? Definitely not. So I would like to conclude by saying universities must prepare the students for a technology enabled future. So I request the faculty here to kindly allow the students to work with interdisciplinary teams like consisting of mechanical engineers, electronics engineers, electrical engineers, computer science engineers, in order to come up with new kind of different 3D printing processes or any kind of technology developments that would help not just themselves to grow, but also take the country ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your talk and showing us the importance of different fields or how the startups can be done, what is their role in 3D manufacturing. Now, to participants, if you have any questions, you can please unmute yourself or put it in the chat box, and then you can ask to the speaker. You can please unmute yourself or post it in the chat box. Okay, we are waiting for the questions from the participants. If any questions, please do ask. Okay. Sir, I feel there are no questions from the participants end. So before we wind up, I would like to once again formally thank you for giving your valuable time and giving a wonderful session as a part of this faculty development program. And I would request you whenever you get your free time to please visit the campus so that we can meet you formally and have some more good time with you. So I thank you very much on behalf of department, sir.
Thank you so much, Anand sir, for inviting me to speak about 3D printing here. I look forward to interacting with you more in the DSCA campus.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Now, before we wind up the session, for all the participants, I have posted the attendance link in the chat group. I request you to please mark your attendance. And the next session will start at 2:30 p.m., which will be presented by Mr. Raghavendra Ayas, who is one more entrepreneur, and it is going to be a very interesting session as this was. So I request you to please join on time back at 2:30 p.m. And also please mark the attendance with the chat link what I posted in the chat box. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anand sir.
Thank you, sir.